Why are you asking a white guy this? Luckily, there's been a bunch of documentaries about this, so I could at least speak to it from an academic standpoint. And the answer is the same to the answer of the question, why is the FGC so queer? It's because fighting games grew up in the arcades, and the arcades were originally third spaces, places for community congregation, for outcasts. There was a moral panic over arcades. People back in the day thought that only irreputable, scummy people were hanging out there. And in actuality, that just meant anybody who wasn't rich and white. As a young queer person, I was exposed to a lot of queer culture just hanging out in the arcades. And as a poor kid growing up, when my parents didn't have the money to buy the next big console, they certainly did have the money to give me $1 and tell me to go to the arcade and just, spend time away from them. And so the arcade was where the punks and the nerds and the geeks all hung out. Everyone who made everyone else pearl clutch. And so if you were a marginalized group, you spent some time in the arcade. Not to mention arcades tended to be built around large urban areas. Chinatown Fair, for example. Now that's the historic reason why marginalized groups tend to be attracted to the fighting game community, but there's another social reason. And that's simply that fighting games only require a single player on your team. You are fighting for yourself. Let's be honest here. We absolutely know how toxic video games can be online. If you have to be a member of a team, like on a MOBA or something, you are opening yourself up to racial slurs, homophobia, stuff like that. The beauty of the fighting game is that you face someone and then you're done. You don't even have to hear anything from them, at least in an online context. And in a meat space context, if they say something fucked up to you, you could turn around and punch them in the face. So there is just not as much bullshit that you have to deal with when you're playing fighting games as opposed to shooters or something. This, by the way, is also why there are a lot of marginalized communities in the speedrunning community. Because again, you don't have to be part of a team, so you're not opening yourself up to hate. So the FGC historically has its roots in spaces that marginalized communities congregated, provides protection for hatred and vitriol that might come to those marginalized communities, and continues to provide a space for people to grow that community. And that's why marginalized communities of all kinds end up being attracted to the FGC. Again, I could speak to that experience as a queer person and just as an academic, but in the future, don't ask the white guy why black people are doing shit. That's just not, don't do that.